Hi YouTubers, welcome back to Vintage Fashion Hat Chat. I'm Norma Shepherd, the director of the Mobile Millinery Museum and the author of 5 books on vintage fashion, including 1,000 hats. This is Monday. The Friday past was International Museum Workers Day, and it's a great time of year to hold that because so much of the work we do is indoor work. Archiving, cataloging, conserving, researching, and curating exhibits. And I think it's wonderful that we've had this day, I think for the past 7 years, to celebrate the type of work we do. Now, my topic today is a little different. Often in museum collections, only the most special artifacts, historically, of course, all the high value clothing artifacts were collected and stored and preserved, and what the everyday person wore was not considered worthy of collecting. That has changed, but still, obviously, couture garments are valued more highly than off the rack, factory made articles. And for the most part, we don't collect a whole lot of factory made hats. I I will tell you that I had the opportunity to interview Irene of Monbtreal, of Canada's, in my opinion, foremost millinery designer of the 20th century. I was able to interview her when she had moved on to a later career in writing, and she was an award winner in that pursuit. But hats had fallen out of fashion and she had moved on to another career, but she still had this reputation amongst Montrealers, and particularly the millinery industry in Montreal, that Irene had the talent to make any woman look beautiful. And a buzz went through the industry in the city when someone was seen wearing one of her hats. They were very, very special. I had so many questions for Irene, and she was very, she knew her value, she knew the value of her time, and she didn't want to bother with anything that she didn't consider worthy. And she was a little, maybe a little scary to interview, but she was wonderful. And after I had sort of satisfied all the questions that I wanted to know about her particular aesthetic, the history of her salon. In fact, she kept, I think, about 3,000 index cards, and those were all on her clients. Notes about her clients, what she had made for them, what their social activities were, that sort of thing, their buying habits, sizes, preferences, that sort of thing. But I moved on when I didn't want to just, I didn't want to let her go. I wanted to ask her more questions, so I brought up the subject of factory-made hats. I knew at the time that back in the 50s and 60s, probably Toronto alone had about 30 hat factories, and I had interviewed owners and designers who worked for those companies. That was part of the research that I had done. So I brought up the topic to Irene, and she just snapped back at me and said, "Factory hats? I never touched the bloody things." And she said it wonderfully in her European accent. Anyway, I do want to touch on a little bit about factory-made hats because, you know, hats have fallen so far out of fashion. There are obviously generations of women now who have never worn a fashion hat. Some of them may have pictures of their mothers, grandmothers, great aunts wearing hats in the 50s and 60s. They might be curious about that. Others have memories of women from those days wearing those hats, and many of them were purchased at department stores, and they were factory made. And so it is part of history. People are curious about it. Some people are also nostalgic about them. So I just want to show you a collection of three. Of course, I've said it before that a collection of anything is, three of anything is a collection. This is a sub-collection of white factory-made hats that have the components of polyester chiffon. Doesn't sound very fancy, but many people only wore a fashion hat maybe once a year. Maybe they were people who attended church only on Easter Sunday. So why would you go to a millinery salon and pay a lot of money for couture that you might never wear again? So these did serve a purpose, and I'm going to show you three. And even though they're factory made, many of them, some of them are have union labels, but they still would be sort of trickle down knockoffs of, the current fashion trends. So I'm going to start with this one. It's done on a woven straw, not an expensive straw. It is a cap style, and it's just wound with chiffon. So very, very plain. This could have been worn with any color. You could go down to your Simpsons, Eaton's, the Bay. Now, those department stores also had salons where you could get handmade couture hats, but off the rack, sometimes in the bargain basement, these are the type of hats that you would find. And a hat like this might have been trimmed at home with a little costume pin, but you can see that it's very, very plain. After I show you these three, I'm going to show you a fourth, which is couture made, and you'll see the difference. Here's another one. Maybe a little more work had gone into this one. This is done on a buckram form. It's a bubble toque style, worn sort of like a very high pillbox, and the chiffon on this one has been shaped and coiled to represent roses. So this was a style of hat very popular in the late 1960s. You'd see these at church, see them at weddings, but again, very plain, although a little more work has gone into this one. It's not lined. That's, just a basic buckram interior. So that's a difference there too. And then the third one is a very small, well, it's pillbox shape, but it's more the style. It's so tiny that you would wear this over upswept hair, perhaps on a bun. This would sit right over it. This one has the white chiffon petals and some little fabric flowers with stamens. So even maybe a little more work had gone into this one. It's still on a buckram form. No lining, no label, but it does have the little plastic combs that would secure it to your hair, and would have been quite lovely. But as I say, there's still a difference between factory made and salon. Okay, now this one is circa 1950. It's a cap style, what I often refer to as a little Lucy hat. The type of hat Lucille Ball would get up to in her show I Love Lucy, when she and Ethel would get up to mischief. So handmade beautiful navy straw, which has been sewn and shaped to create this cap. Then you have some contrast white woven straw, which is the same pattern as the navy, but it's wrapped and shaped to create this lovely banding. And then we have the feather plume, and this has been lacquered, and then the chenille dot veiling. A really sweet little piece. So I mean, you could see at a glance that this is not just something you would get from the, sales rack in the bargain basement at a department store. This is the front. I guess I could put it on. The veiling, of course, as they all do, they all seem to have little holes and a little bit of deterioration, but that could be repaired. Just to show you the difference and give you a little background on the factory made hats. Thank you for watching. I post Mondays and Thursdays. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It's a little rainy here. It's very rainy here, and it promises to be raining all week, so I have lots of indoor projects to keep me busy. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. In the meantime, hit like, share, subscribe, and have a happy day.